Hey guys, welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about how to eat and train for a marathon. If you're new to this channel, every week I put out content on fitness, health, nutrition and mindset. My goal with this channel is basically to inspire you guys to go out there, go outside your comfort zone and live life to its fullest potential. If you're interested in any of these topics, please do subscribe. Alright, let's get into the video. Alright guys, let's get into it. The first thing you want to be thinking about is designing a rough structure for your program. This rough structure should basically be inclusive of building a base for your running, having some consistent training in your program, having some hill running and interval training running, being able to do at least a half marathon. If you're aiming to do a marathon, you want to be able to be comfortable running these distances. And in the final few weeks, you want to be really going hard and doing as much as possible to be able to cover the distance that you're covering. And then also you want to be able to taper down in your 1-2 weeks prior to doing the actual race for the event. Guys, the next thing we're going to be talking about is the measurements that you're going to be using. So the measurements that I generally use and I prefer to use is I prefer to use effort level over pace, and I prefer to use time over distance when calculating the effort that you're using for the run and how long you're going to be running for or doing whatever endurance event for. So in terms of why I use effort level over pace is because your pace can be affected by a variety of things. How well you've eaten, how well you've slept, any other stresses in your life, and a variety of things. So if you're designing a run where you're running at 5 minutes 30 a pace for 10 kilometers, it's sometimes difficult to maintain that pace and you'll have to constantly look at your watch and you'll have to if there are traffic lights, it's going to be annoying. You don't know if you can sustain that pace exactly unless you're doing an event. So a much better way of doing this is by effort level. And I calculate effort level by using heart rate. If I'm doing a run where I'm saying for 30 minutes at 80% heart rate, I know that for the majority of the run I have to do it I have to be at that level. Whereas it's so much easier and so much more beneficial if you can do that over a consistent period of time, because you can gauge effort level it's a much simpler and less complex process to gauge effort level rather than pace, because you don't have to look at your watch all the time. The other reason why I put time over distance is because if you're doing a 1 hour run, somebody might be able to cover 10 kilometers in 1 hour. Somebody else might be able to cover 15. Somebody else only might be able to cover 5. So you want to be able to find a program where you are constantly challenging yourself, but not overdoing it or underdoing it. And time is a good balancer for that, because you're running to a certain limit. And every week, let's say in the first week you run 5 kilometers in an hour. In the next week's run, you can run maybe 7 kilometers in an hour. That shows that you are making an improvement, and it's a great way to measure this as well. And I find that time and effort for these reasons are fantastic. Guys, if you're liking this content, do leave a thumbs up and leave a comment below with any questions that you might have about what I've covered so far. Also, if you've run a personal best time for a 10 kilometer or a half marathon or a marathon, leave your comments below and I'll reply every single one. Let's get to know each other and let's have a dialogue about this. Okay guys, let's move on to the next part. The next part, guys, is essentially what's going to be the actual run, the runs itself, which are going to be the long run and the threshold running. Now, the long run is famous, and I have to cover this because the long run is like the meat and potatoes of a training program. And you essentially want to be in the long run between doing two things: testing your hydration, your nutrition, and also the distance that you're covering. Every week, when you're doing this long run, it's either generally people tend to do it on a weekend because you need a bit of time to do it. But what you want to be doing is you want to be able to push yourself further every single week. So and you increase it by time and by distance essentially. So in the first week, if you're doing a 1 hour run, in the next week you want to be doing 1 hour 15 minutes. And in the second week, when you're doing the 1 hour 15 minutes, you want to try to make sure that you've covered a larger portion of the distance that you've done in the first week in that first hour of the 1 hour 15 minutes. Let me break down. Let me make it more simple. So if you're running 10 kilometers in the first hour of the first week, in the second week you want to be running at least 11 kilometers in that first hour portion of the 1 hour 15 minute run. The long run is also a great way to test out your nutrition and your hydration. Generally, what I do for the long runs, and what you should do as well, is take gels, a little bit of water and some caffeine with you, and I highly recommend using these 3 ingredients. If your long runs are longer than 1.5 hours, you need to have carbohydrates and refuel every about 45 minutes. Doing it this way, your body gets used to digesting fluids and digesting nutrients and carbohydrates while you're actually moving and exercising, etc. If your runs are less than 1.5 hours, you can kind of get away with it, but I would recommend eating a meal prior to running. A lot of people do train faster as well, and that's fine. But if you're doing a very long distance, like if you're going for 2 hours and more, I generally would say that you would start needing some nutrition in the run as well. Alright guys, in the next portion of the marathon training part is your threshold runs. Now these are the most important sessions that you're going to be able to do, because this is when you're running at your lactate threshold and you want to be able to build the lactate and your lactate endurance by just about training at this threshold. And what this means is now lactate is actually good for you. People hear about lactate and think lactic acid. Yes, and that's part of it. Lactic acid is a byproduct of lactate, and that's actually bad for you, and that causes muscle soreness, inflammation, etc. as well. And this is why you want to be able to train at your lactate threshold. What this means is it's about 80 to 90% of your maximum heart rate, and you want to be able to stay in this zone for specific periods of sessions. Now, these sessions are generally covered in interval training. Interval training are the supplementary sessions that you do, or they're actually very important supplementary sessions that you do prior to doing a long run. So you want to be able to essentially do like a session that I did recently was 12 rounds of 1.5 minutes at 80 to 90% heart rate with a 1 minute break in between. And you want to be able to repeat this for 12 rounds, obviously, like I said before. So this kind of session actually builds your leg speed and make sure that when you're doing a longer runs, you'll be able to do it at a faster pace. And that is the purpose of threshold sessions. They're absolutely key. If there's anything you want to be able to do during the week, the ones that you should do absolutely, which are compulsory, at least 1 to 2 threshold sessions, and definitely the long run as well. Okay guys, let's get to the actual nutrition itself. What do you actually eat when you're training for a marathon? How do you eat? When do you eat? Etc. Alright, let's get into it. So in terms of what I eat, I would highly recommend more carbohydrate rich foods, and these are things like kale, which is an antioxidant rich vegetable that helps regulate the body's inflammatory process. Kale has a high fiber content and contains antioxidants that protect cells from free radicals. The next one is milk. Whatever type of milk you prefer, guys, it's an ideal post-workout, post-exercise muscle recovery drink for endurance athletes. Milk has an ideal combination of carbohydrates and proteins to recover your muscle tissues and to kickstart the muscle protein synthesis required for recovery. Guys, if you're liking this content and you haven't subscribed yet, please do click the subscribe button and hit the bell notifications so then you're notified every single time a video comes out. I'd really appreciate that. Thank you very much, guys. Alright, the next one is actually chia seeds. Chia seeds have a high amount of omega-3 fatty acids and a high amount of fiber. It's considered a superfood as it has 3 times the number of antioxidants than blueberries as well, which is actually extremely good for you. And finally, one of the other products that you would want to take is whey protein. Whey protein, you don't necessarily have to take the powder, but the supplements are actually really easily absorbed into the body. Whey protein is really easily absorbed into the body, and it helps for a quick recovery. It's got amino acids and protein, and which are essential for muscle building and recovery, etc. Now guys, I want to talk to you guys about the final week prior to the marathon. In your final week prior to the marathon, you want to be doing a carb load while doing the tapering, which is basically at the end of your race, at the end of this thing, you want to be able to change your diet a bit by having a lot more carbohydrates to give your muscles a lot more glycogen to be able to use actually on the day of the race. Basically, guys and girls, that's about it. I mean, those are the nuts and bolts about training for a marathon. So in summary, do your long runs, do your threshold training sessions, be able to taper and be able to carb load the week before the race as well, while practicing your nutrition on your long runs as well. Okay guys, I'll see you in the next video. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.